Welcome to the Calm Mom Podcast, the show for ambitious women ready to get off the hot mess express. I know you've got a lot going on. You work so hard, you're raising an incredible family, and sometimes it can be overwhelming. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a certified master life coach, attorney, wife, and mom. And years ago, I was right where you are. I was running a busy law practice while raising a family, and I was on the fast track to burnout. I thought I just needed to be more organized or have better routines, but it was learning how to heal and regulate my nervous system that expanded my capacity to gracefully hold more of this big, beautiful life. You too are worthy of an extraordinary life in and beyond motherhood. Learning to be a calm, anchoring presence in your home and at work is going to be your superpower. If you're here to do the inner work that brings a sense of calm amidst the chaos, I'm here to join you on that journey. Each time you press play, your growth continues. So let's get at it. What's up, you guys? It's Michelle here. Thanks for listening to the Calm Mom Podcast. Always love hanging with you guys here. Today, we're going to talk about what I see as the number one reason why the women that I coach, maybe you count yourself among this group, why you haven't been able to heal your anxiety until now. And I think this is really important because so many of us, ambitious mamas, high achieving mamas, we know like all the things, right? Like we've listened to the podcast and we've read the books and we've done the Googling about anxiety, however that shows up on the spectrum for you. And no matter what we do, it has felt maybe like it's been done in vain, right? It feels like we're doing all the quote unquote right things, but we're still waking up feeling anxious. We're still feeling anxious throughout the day. Maybe we worry a lot. Maybe it shows up in different ways. Maybe it shows up as perfectionism, or maybe it shows up as people pleasing, or maybe it shows up as feeling like people are mad at you, or that like low grade anxiety where it just feels like you're always running behind or you can't catch up or everything is urgent. And that feels really overwhelming, right? And it feels like it won't go away even when we do the quote unquote right things. And I think herein lies the problem, right? I think so many of us have been taught that anxiety is all in our head, right? That anxiety is a mind issue, that anxiety is a thinking issue. If we just change our thoughts, if we just focus on, positive thinking, that's going to make it all go away. And that is not true. In reality, anxiety is not a thinking problem. Anxiety is actually a deeply rooted body-based problem, right? It's actually often tied to unresolved trauma. So for today's episode, what I want to do with you guys is I want to unpack why your anxiety is actually a body-based issue. Like, let's get into it. I want to talk about trauma because I think a lot of times we just think about big traumatic events. And a lot of us are like, maybe you have experienced some of those. And when I say trauma, you know exactly, right, what's causing your anxiety. Or you can go back and you can identify, like pinpoint traumatic events for you. But maybe you're someone who's listening to this podcast and you're like, well, I had a pretty, normal childhood. I grew up in a pretty healthy home. I didn't experience any capital T trauma. Let's talk about it. And then finally, I want to talk about this idea of trauma getting stored in our body. I feel like we hear that a lot in the somatic space. We hear that a lot when we talk about nervous system regulation, that trauma gets quote unquote stored in the body. And it's kind of a weird thing to say, right? It's like, how does trauma get stored in my body? And it's something that I didn't really understand until I started to go deep and do this work myself. So I want to touch on it today so you guys can walk away with this new understanding. And then I want to talk about why inner child work and really meeting our inner child where they're at and learning how to reparent ourselves can be a game changer for healing anxiety, you guys. All right, so let's start it off here. Anxiety is not a thought problem. It's not a thinking problem. It's not necessarily a focus problem. It's a body-based issue. Anxiety is not all in your head. And the root of your anxiety lies in your body. And particularly The root of your anxiety lives in the unresolved feelings of alarm that are stored in your nervous system over time. And that's why mindset work alone can't fix it, you guys. Mindset shifts, positive thinking, cognitive behavioral therapy, all great, all helpful, absolutely, right? But they focus primarily on changing your thoughts. But it's actually your nervous system stuck in a state of alarm that's going on that's causing this anxiety, right? And sometimes trying to force ourselves to think positively or look on the bright side or see the silver lining can actually increase our anxiety. It's almost like we feel like we're trying to swim upstream, right? Against the current. Positive thinking is really hard to do when your body is stuck in a state of chronic stress. Like, raise your hand if that's you, right? If you're like, I know that I want to think positively, but when I'm feeling really anxious, when I'm feeling really nervous, when I'm, worrying about things, when I feel super overwhelmed, when I wake up feeling like I'm already behind on the day, and then I start to feel irritable and edgy, I want to think positively, but it's really hard. And that's not you. Like, that's not like, oh, that's just part of my personality, or I'm just kind of cranky, or no, this is your physiology. When our body is in a stress response, positive thinking is that part of our brain is offline. So it's your biology, right? Positive thinking isn't possible when our body's stuck in a state of chronic stress. Our nervous system actually overrides our rational thought when it perceives danger. So if our body thinks that something's going on that isn't best for us, right? Might not be safe, might get us, feeling embarrassed or really disappointed. What happens? That lizard brain kind of takes over, fight or flight, freeze or fawn. And all of a sudden, our prefrontal cortex, that part of our brain that's responsible for rational thought and seeing other perspectives and reasoning and logic and all these different things, offline, shut down. And that's why it's hard to just kind of think ourselves out of these things. So anxiety is a nervous system response. It's not just this mental response. When you're feeling anxious, your body's actually signaling to your brain, hey, something's off here, right? It's like waving this red flag. Hey, something is wrong. Even if that threat has been gone for 30 years, right? Even if you're not even aware of what's causing your nervous system to sense and perceive some sort of threat, maybe it's something that's subconscious, it still puts you in a state of alarm. And so often that's how it manifests as anxiety, racing thoughts, worrying, those types of things. So if you've been struggling with anxiety, however that's showing up for you, and you've tried, quote unquote, tried it all, right? But you've really only focused on your thoughts. Friends, I have such good news for you, because you've just been missing that deeper body-based work that you actually need to start to engage in for healing to happen, for your anxiety start to fade. So big takeaway for this point, you guys, anxiety starts in your body, not in your mind. Okay, let's then kind of jump to trauma. What is trauma? And the fact that it's not always these big capital T traumatic events, right? Trauma is really misunderstood. I think a lot of people think of it as, PTSD or someone going off to war, or, we can think of like abuse or violence or, a tragic death or an accident or something like that. And those, yes, absolutely can certainly cause trauma. But most people experience smaller but equally impactful emotional wounds, right? Those small T traumas. And the thing with trauma is that it's really subjective, right? It's not like X event is traumatic. It's what does your nervous system have the capacity to hold? That's why if you have two people who witness the same thing, right? Let's say you have two people that witness a really awful car accident, right? A really violent car accident. That might have been really traumatic for person A's nervous system, but not necessarily so for person B's nervous system, because for a myriad of reasons, they just had more capacity to hold what was going on around them without it overwhelming their nervous system. So that's a really colloquial, I guess, way to define trauma is just too much, too soon, too fast for our nervous system. And because every nervous system is different, and because our own nervous system can vary, right? The capacity of our nervous system can vary from day to day and moment to moment. Trauma is really subjective. It's about what we experienced and whether our nervous system could hold it in the moment. So when we talk about these small T traumas, I mean, I would venture to say almost all of us have experienced small T traumas. These are those like emotional injuries that can come up from, maybe trying to have, speak and say something important as a child and being told, whether overtly or kind of insinuated, that children are meant to be seen and not heard. Or maybe it was this like really heavy weight of achievement and perfection that was expected of you, right? You were expected to always get A's, or you were expected to always behave perfectly, or you were expected to take care of your caregivers or your other siblings, or maybe you just felt really unseen or unheard in your family. Maybe your family experienced chronic stress, whether it was financial or maybe there was a divorce in your family, or maybe you lost a grandparent and that was traumatic for you. Like, you might have learned to minimize a lot of these experiences, you guys, but they still leave a lasting imprint on your nervous system, especially, you guys, childhood experiences of abandonment. However that looks, right? Maybe it's not a parent just up and leaving. Maybe it is. But any feeling as a child that you were not cared for, not held, not feeling safe, right? That your basic needs weren't being met, that can all contribute to nervous system dysregulation that then manifests as anxiety in adulthood. And it's because trauma, even those small T traumas, you guys, it causes our nervous system to become hypersensitive, right? It causes our nervous system to kind of always be on alert and looking out for these things that felt really unsafe when we were a kid, or felt like a lot of pressure when we were a kid, or felt like if, we had to walk on eggshells when we were a kid, or whatever it is. It makes our nervous system feel like it has to overreact to things that happen now, right? Decades later. It's kind of like having this raw nerve, like we're just constantly on edge, even when there's no real danger in front of us. And what happens then is that we kind of get stuck in one of those stress responses, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it creates this like swirling, twirling perfect storm for chronic anxiety as adults. So even if you don't identify with having gone through a quote unquote major trauma in your lifetime, you might still be carrying a lot of emotional weight, you guys, of these unresolved smaller traumas that so often we're not even aware of, that really contribute to your body's state of anxiety. Okay, that's the second point I wanted to touch on with a trauma. And then the third point I want to make today in today's episode is this idea of trauma getting stored in the body. Like, what does that even mean? And how does it then show up as anxiety? There is, I guess, it's like the seminal book on trauma and somatics and trauma getting stored in the body. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. The body keeps the score. And that's it, you guys. Trauma that goes unresolved, the trauma that we don't heal, the trauma that we don't process, the trauma that we don't release, it doesn't just disappear, right? If you have experienced a capital T trauma and you have not properly dealt with that trauma and gotten the support that you need and gotten emotionally uncomfortable to allow that to heal, or if you've experienced some of these lowercase little t traumas, a lot of pressure going up, parents who expected perfect things from you, being parentified yourself, having to walk on eggshells around a caregiver, like whatever it looked like. If that has not been resolved and processed, it gets quote unquote stored in your body. What does that mean? It means that your nervous system remembers. Your nervous system is like a library. It's like constantly cataloging all of these life events, especially to anything that you experienced that felt dangerous, that had a tinge of abandonment to it, right? Where you might have felt rejected. Maybe it was bullying, like whatever it was, right? And what happens is that when our body experiences any sort of trauma, our nervous system, it shifts into the survival mode, right? Bam, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And if you don't have the tools, my friends, and if you don't have the safety to process it at the time, which a lot of us don't, especially in childhood, right? We just don't have the tools or the guidance or the place to like process this in real time. Our body stores it away. Our body catalogs away that unresolved alarm. And that can manifest years later as anxiety because our nervous system now feels like it has to overreact to keep us safe, right? It's like we're going through something that seems kind of neutral. We're like, this isn't actually a big deal. Like I got today handled. Like I wake up in the morning and I'm like, nothing bad is going to happen today, but I have all of this anxiety. It's your body having had stored all of that unresolved alarm, right? Your nervous system might overreact to these seemingly neutral situations because it's carrying all of these memories of past threats, even if we don't consciously connect the past and the present. It's this mismatch, right, between our body and our mind. And I think anxiety is often a misnomer. Like the real issue is our body's alarm state, right? Anxious thoughts are kind of like the byproduct of this stored energy in our body. So our mind tries to like rationalize the alarm, but it's actually not a thinking problem, right? Back to square one where we started. It's actually a body problem. It's a sensation problem. It's a feeling problem. So the key is not to just change our thinking or try to think it away or be more positive or I don't know, all that garbage that the world tries to tell us is the solution. The key is first to address that felt sense of alarm in your body, because your body is sending the signals of alarm, causing you to feel anxiety, and then your brain tries to explain it by creating worries. The body signals come first, and that perpetuates the cycle because the real issue is actually that stored, all those stored memories, all that stored information in your body, not in your mind. So that's your takeaway today, right? Your anxious thoughts actually aren't the root of your problem. We'll work on those, right? We'll work on your mindset and where you're focusing your thoughts. All of that is important. Yes, don't get me wrong. Hear me. Those are your mind's way of trying to rationalize, though, the feeling of alarm that's actually coming from your body. So you need to work with the body-based aspects of anxiety first in order to truly heal. And I'll actually drop this right here. I am so excited because if you guys have heard me talk about my group coaching program called Restore, this was a group that came together. We've done it quarterly. It's been amazing, teaching women how to regulate their nervous system, heal from burnout through all of these different body-based techniques, right? Somatic techniques. And I have been working so hard over the last couple months to completely reimagine this program. We have just like overhauled this whole experience, you guys, and it is freaking incredible. We've actually lengthened it. It was a 6-week program. I've lengthened it to a 12-week program because it was just too deep. There's too much information to be able to actually learn it and then start to implement and embody what you're learning in 6 weeks. So you have more time now. I'm bringing in expert teachers to do these master classes on things that are related to healing from burnout and regulating your nervous system, but they're not my wheelhouse. So master classes on hormones and productivity and time management and work-life balance and our thyroid and fascia and all these amazing things. I'm actually putting together, and I'm super excited about this, a whole library of somatic tools and resources and nervous system regulation tools, playlists, like 5, 10, 15 minute playlists for anything that you're facing. So if it's anxiety, right? There's going to be a bunch of tools there. You can choose anxiety and then kind of go through the tools that I have for you there, where you can shift the state of your nervous system in just a few minutes. So I'm really excited about that. I'm going to be talking about it more coming through the next couple months. But you're really going to start to hear about it at the end of the year. And then the next cohort is going to be starting in early 2025, which is the perfect time, I think, for all of us to get through the holidays. And then in the new year, really focus our intention and our time around healing our nervous system for our best year yet, right? Let's heal your burnout. Let's heal your anxiety. Let's get you the tools that you need to be able to sustainably regulate your nervous system without adding a bunch of other stuff to your to-do list or to your plate. Because if you're anything like me, you already got a lot going on. All right. So if that feels aligned for you, if you've been curious about joining us in the next cohort, just kind of, have that on your radar. Keep your eyes open. More information will be coming soon. It even has a new name. I'm so excited to share it all with you guys. And those of you who are on the wait list actually for Restore are going to start hearing from me very soon with the bonuses and the discounts available only to the waitlist members. So if you're actually interested in getting on that waitlist, go to michellegrosser.com/restore. There are buttons there where you can jump on the waitlist. You just put your name and your email. And then that way, when I start inviting women into the next cohort of our group program, you will be on that list and you will be able to take advantage of the bonuses and the discounts that are going to be available only to waitlist members. All right, let's wind it down here with inner child. I guess I should start what is inner child work? Let's start there. And then let's talk about how it can be so transformational for healing anxiety, especially in light of what we just talked about. So inner child work is really just recognizing that our feelings of alarm that are causing us to feel anxious and experience anxiety, those feelings that we're experiencing today are actually rooted in unresolved emotional pain from our childhood, right? So the child, the quote unquote child part of you, subconscious part of you, still holds onto the trauma, still holds onto that emotional neglect or baggage or pain or whatever from those early years of your life, right? Your nervous system is still reacting as if it's still the child who was under a lot of pressure, the child who was hurt, the child who was scared, the child who was abandoned or unseen. And the adult you in present day might rationally understand that the threat isn't there anymore, right? But your inner child, you guys, that younger version of you, that subconscious part of you, she's active and she still feels that pain. So when we do inner child work together, it can really help you to reconnect with that younger version of yourself. And you can provide yourself with the comfort and the validation and the safety and all the other things that younger version of you needed but didn't get. You can provide it to yourself now. And by doing that, you guys, it's one of the most powerful ways that you can help your nervous system to complete the process of healing from that unresolved alarm in your body. Because we know that, right? Anxiety is just driven by that unresolved alarm state that started in childhood. So when you start healing the wounds from your family of origin, other early emotional injuries, your nervous system can finally start to feel safe and can finally start to settle and to regulate. So honestly, guys, inner child work is so powerful. You can be the one to take responsibility now as an adult to rescue and comfort the parts of yourself that still felt abandoned and unsafe and unseen, and release so much of the stored energy of trauma. And that allows you guys to make a shift and stop living in that constant state of hypervigilance. And that is the key to healing your body's alarm state. And then by extension, your anxiety. So by going back to a lot of those unresolved emotional wounds, yes, getting emotionally uncomfortable, yes, equipping yourself and surrounding yourself with safety, right? Safe people and a guide and a coach to lead you there in a safe way, in a way that isn't re-traumatizing, but having the courage to say, hey, I'm not going to continue to sweep this under the rug. I'm not going to continue to live in denial, right? I'm not going to keep suppressing and repressing all this stuff that I'm noticing is wanting to sneak out and rear its head. I'm actually going to have the courage to face the emotionally uncomfortable. And in doing that, you're actually going to open this portal and this gateway to be able to comfort that younger part of yourself where you can begin to feel safe again in your body. Okay, so let's bring it full circle. Anxiety is not just a mental issue, right? It's deeply rooted in your body. It's often tied to unresolved trauma and inner child work, you guys. This body-based healing practice can really help you to address the true source of your anxiety and free you from the cycle of alarm. I had a one-on-one client that I had her last session, I don't know, maybe a month ago now. But in our last session with my one-on-one clients, there's 3 questions that I have them reflect on and kind of journal about and then bring to our last session and we discuss it together. And one of the questions is what is one of the most surprising things that you've learned about yourself, or a surprising thing that you didn't realize would have as much of an impact as it's had on your healing journey? And for her, right off the bat, she's like, I completely underestimated the power of inner child work. Doing inner child work with you, Michelle, helped me heal so many things from my childhood and teenage years that were still like having such a huge impact on how I show up in my business, how I show up as a parent, how I show up as a wife. And she was like in shock of how much of an impact, how much healing came from allowing herself to tend to and reparent her inner child, right? Give that inner child the parenting that she actually needed all along, seeing the inner child, asking questions, right? Making sure that she's attended to and feels safe. Huge, huge, huge impact. So if you've been struggling with anxiety, however it's shown up, right, on the spectrum, start paying attention to how your body feels, not just your thoughts. Because I'm telling you right now, I've seen it hundreds and hundreds of times over. Healing is possible, you guys, when you work from the bottom up. When you first focus on your body and then start to focus on your mindset. So I am going to invite you today to start to explore all of this stuff we've talked about, right? Start exploring inner child work. If you have questions, if you want to hear more about it, like send me a DM on Instagram at It's Michelle Grosser. Shoot me an email, hello@michellegrosser.com. Somatic practices, right? Listen to some other podcast episodes about ways that you can start to use your body to calm yourself, to regulate your nervous system. And then, seek support. If you want to dive deeper, if you're committed to doing this, if you're like 2024 is going to be the last year where I'm dealing with this anxiety and this dysregulation and this, irritability and edginess and worries and being busy all the time and chronic fatigue and, all the mental, emotional, and physical symptoms of dysregulation, the burnout, holy moly, right? Put it on your vision board to do our group program in January. Start planning for it. Start planning for it with your time and your schedule and your bandwidth and your finances if you have to. And I think that would be such a beautiful gift to yourself as we come into the holiday season. Because my friend, you are so worth it. You're so worth it. And healing is possible for you. So thanks for listening in today. If this episode has been helpful for you in any way, if you've learned anything, if you've had like a aha moment, or if you've connected some dots and you're like, oh, that's why I'm still struggling with anxiety because I've tried all this other stuff, but I have not addressed the root issue, which is trauma stuck in my body, right? Man, if you could leave the podcast a 5-star rating and a short review, I would just be so grateful. Y'all are the best. I love to hear from you. And it's just such a good way for us to get this show and this information out in front of other women just like you. All right, my friends, I love you all so much. Have a great rest of the day. I'll talk to you guys soon.
If you love Mommy's Podcast, leave a review.
If you enjoyed this episode, it would be so awesome if you could take a moment to subscribe and rate the podcast. And if you have just a few more seconds to leave a quick review, they really help to get this podcast out to other moms like you. I read every last review, and trust me, when it's late at night or early in the morning before my kids get up and I'm working on bringing you all of this content, your reviews are what keep me going. Leaving a review is truly the best way you can thank me. And of course, DM me on Instagram. I love to hear from you. Thanks for listening to another episode. Head over to the show notes for this episode and all past episodes at michellegrosser.com, where you'll find free resources and more ways to connect with me. If you love the show, share it with a friend. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.